In 1927, 4-year-old Billy Gaffney was playing with a friend in his Brooklyn apartment building when he suddenly vanished. His friend later told police the boogeyman took him. That boogeyman was Albert Fish, a soft-spoken, elderly man who hid one of the darkest, most sadistic minds in criminal history. Billy's fate was beyond horrifying. Fish later confessed to torturing, mutilating, and cannibalizing the boy in ways too graphic to describe. But Billy wasn't his first victim, nor would he be his last. Fish's crimes spanned decades, his quiet demeanor concealing a man driven by unimaginable sadistic urges. To understand how someone becomes capable of such atrocities, we need to look at the beginning of Albert Fish's life, a childhood marred by abuse, neglect, and a descent into darkness. Albert Fish was born Hamilton Howard Fish on May 19, 1870, in Washington, D.C., into a family steeped in dysfunction. His father, 75 years old at the time of Fish's birth, died when Albert was just 5. Struggling financially, his mother placed him in an orphanage, a place that became a breeding ground for his later depravity. In the orphanage, Fish was subjected to daily beatings and whippings. Instead of fearing the abuse, he began to derive pleasure from it, linking pain and pleasure in a way that would define his future actions. By the time his mother regained custody when he was 9, the psychological damage was irreversible. During his adolescence, Fish's behavior grew more alarming. He began experimenting with self-harm, driving needles into his body and developing a fascination with physical pain. He changed his name to Albert Fish after a deceased sibling and became obsessed with religion, twisting its teachings into justifications for his dark desires. As an adult, Fish appeared unremarkable, a painter, handyman, and father of 6. But beneath the surface, he was a predator, targeting the most vulnerable members of society, children. Fish would lure them with promises of candy or money, focusing on those less likely to be missed, such as orphans or children of immigrants. His crimes escalated from molestation to gruesome torture, murder, and even cannibalism. Fish claimed his actions were driven by voices he believed came from God. 2 of Fish's most chilling crimes involved Francis McDonnell and Billy Gaffney, whose deaths remain among the most horrifying in American history. Francis McDonnell was 9 years old when he was lured away by Fish in Staten Island in 1924. Witnesses saw a gray man leading Francis into the woods. Later, the boy was found strangled, his body bearing signs of a violent assault. Fish admitted he had planned to eat parts of Francis's body, but fled before he could finish the act. Then there was Billy Gaffney. In 1927, Fish abducted the 4-year-old from a Brooklyn apartment building. Fish's later confession revealed unspeakable details about Billy's murder. He described torturing the boy with hot pokers, mutilating him, and consuming parts of his body. The sheer brutality of this crime cemented Fish's place as one of history's most sadistic killers. But Fish's most infamous crime was the abduction and murder of Grace Budd in 1928. Fish answered a newspaper ad placed by Edward Budd, a young man looking for work. Using the alias Frank Howard, Fish charmed the Budd family with his polite demeanor, even bringing gifts for their children. His true target, however, was Grace, Edward's 10-year-old sister. Fish convinced the family to let Grace accompany him to a fictional birthday party for his niece. It was the last time they saw her alive. Fish later admitted to taking Grace to an abandoned house, where he murdered and cannibalized her. Years later, in 1934, Fish sent a letter to the Budd family detailing what he had done. The letter was both a taunt and a confession, providing the critical clue that led police to Fish. When Fish was arrested in 1934, his frail appearance shocked the public. How could someone so seemingly harmless commit such heinous acts? But his confessions painted a gruesome picture. Fish admitted to murdering Grace Budd, Billy Gaffney, Francis McDonnell, and potentially dozens of others. He claimed to have killed over 100 children, though this number was never confirmed. Fish also revealed his self-mutilation practices, including driving needles into his groin and flogging himself with a nail-studded paddle. X-rays later confirmed that over 20 needles were embedded in his pelvis, a chilling testament to his sadomasochism. Fish's trial began in 1935, drawing intense public attention. The defense argued that Fish was insane, pointing to his delusions and self-harm as evidence of mental illness. Psychiatrists described him as a psychopathic deviant, but the prosecution maintained that Fish knew right from wrong. They pointed to his calculated efforts to cover his tracks and avoid capture. After a brief but gruesome trial, the jury found Fish guilty of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to death in the electric chair. Fish reportedly welcomed the verdict, expressing curiosity about what the experience of electrocution would feel like. On January 16, 1936, Albert Fish was executed at Sing Sing prison. His last words, "I don't even know why I'm here," remain as haunting as his crimes. Albert Fish's story is one of the darkest in true crime history. His ability to blend into society while committing such unimaginable atrocities serves as a chilling reminder of the evil that can hide in plain sight. His case continues to fascinate psychologists and criminologists, raising questions about the balance between nature and pure human depravity. Thank you for joining me on Crimes and Coffee as we delved into the terrifying story of Albert Fish. What do you think? Was Fish a product of his environment, or was he simply born a monster? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more true crime deep dives. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and keep your coffee hot.